okay, I'd say strap in because I'm not 100% sure how long this one's going to be. I'll try and keep it as short as possible. So I've been wearing this watch for a couple of weeks now, and just wanted to provide some pretty comprehensive views that I have on this watch. So why did I choose this watch first of all? I wasn't, as always, planning on buying another watch this year. I'm trying to save for my 40th, and I will actually do a video on that as well, just what kind of options I've been looking at and my thought process for that. But that's next year. And then the Moon Swatch came out, and I think like lots of people, I got a little bit carried away. And oh, sorry if my hands are dirty, by the way, I was painting my fence earlier, but whatever. And I was going to buy 2 of them, so that's about £400. I remember seeing this watch launched a year, I think it was ago now. And for me, for my taste, blue and white or blue and silver is absolutely spot on. But I didn't really want to spend 1,100 odd pounds at the time. Plus, I think I was going through buying and selling Tudors and my IWC and other watches. So it didn't make sense for me at the time it was released to purchase it. So it would have been a man maths. And this popping up on the TZ watch forum that I'm on, it came up at £725. And I was going to spend 400 on 2 Moon Swatches. And I think this is a far better watch from everything I've read, specs-wise and all that type of thing. And I've already got a G-Shock for my kind of beta plastic watch duties. So I did some man maths and stretched to this watch. It was a very last minute decision. I wasn't expecting to buy it. I wasn't expecting it to come up on the forum, but I knew I wanted one. So when it did come up, I just wanted to jump on it and give it a go. As people who have followed any of my videos will know, I have had a Longines Conquest, one of the older models, and I also had a Zelos Horizons GMT, both similar price categories. The Zelos was about £800, I think, and the Longines was around 1,000. I think it was 1,150, so identical price to this. So that's my kind of what I'm going to be comparing it to. I won't be comparing it to my Amiga and my IWC and my Tudors because they're a different price category altogether. So one of the things that drew me to this, immediately I like the look of it. I really like I say, the white and the blue. As I say, it's silver in some lights. I like dive watch styles, like lots of people out there. And yeah, immediately I was drawn to the look of the case and the dial. The dimensions are within my Goldilocks dimensions as well. So it's 40, but apparently it measures at 40.5 millimeter diameter. It's 13.2 millimeters thick. But what people don't, the reason there's mixed measurements for the thickness is that, so the little logo on the back is slightly raised. So if you measure it with the calipers on that logo, I think it's more like 13.5 millimeters. But if you measure it with the calipers not on that logo, it's 13.2 millimeters. So I think I said in my previous video, I wasn't sure why there were different measurements coming out for it, but that is why. And then it's 47.5 millimeters lug to lug. So it fits very, very nicely on my exactly 7-inch wrist. Bear with me. I won't keep taking it on and off. I'll just put it on once. So there you go. That's on my 7-inch wrist there. I think it looks absolutely mega. So without handling it, knowing the dimensions, knowing I like the colorway, I wanted to get it and give it a go. What I did notice immediately, and I'll come on to the bracelet in a minute, sorry for that pause, I was just reading my notes, is that it's heavy. The only other watch I've worn that I immediately thought was heavy was my GMT, my Tudor GMT, which is 41 millimeter model, 14 millimeters thick, 22 millimeter bracelet, blah, blah, blah. So because this is, I didn't actually mention it, because it's only 20 millimeters between the lugs, I didn't think it would be quite as heavy, but the bracelet is quite a beefy thing, especially the clasp. And we will come on to that. So when I weighed it, it was 167 grams. And I think my Tudor was 178 grams, around there. It's about 10, 13 grams difference. So still heavier, but you can really feel this on the wrist when you have it paired. with the bracelet. So by putting it onto a NATO, I measured it on this NATO, to be fair. Actually, I measured it on this rubber strap, which I'll come on to. It was, the weight came in at around 98 grams, and then it just disappears on the wrist, and it becomes extremely comfortable and a lot more wearable for me. So that was one of the reasons you won't see the bracelet on the watch at the moment. So having spent a lot of time with the watch, the dial is absolutely epic. I've mentioned before, it's a sunburst effect. You can just see it there with the lights. It's silver in some lights, it's white in some lights. It just looks brilliant. And I spent more time looking at this dial than I care to imagine or admit. It's really, really fantastic. It surprised me a great deal. The bezel action, again, really shocked me. So, ready? It's quite firm. You can see I'm having to use some force to move it, but it feels very premium. What I will say is I went to try on a Omega Seamaster 300, and my friend's got one of the older ones. I tried on one of the newer ones, the white dial one, strange enough, because I was looking for a white dial watch. And the bezel action was atrocious. It felt very cheap. It really surprised me. And on my friend's Omega Seamaster 300 with the plain blue dial, the older version, I think it's one of James Bond versions, the bezel actually rocks, as well as feels very cheap, and it's hard to use because of the scallops and not having a coin edge like this. So I think this bezel action is fantastic. It's solid, there's no back play, I don't have any misalignment on mine. It feels very premium, a lot more premium than I expected it to. It's different to my 58. I'm not going to compare it to that, but that's always touted as one of the best bezel actions. That and the Rolex Submariner. And I've played with both because my friend's got a Submariner. And I think this one, if it was a little bit looser, so it didn't need quite as much effort to rotate it, it's not quite the same, but it's not far off those. And I think that's very high praise indeed, having come from 258s, my GMT, and playing with my friend's Rolex Submariner. So yeah, the bezel action is absolutely phenomenal. Really blew me away. Where are we? The bezel color. So the bezel color, as I've mentioned before, is kind of like a petrol blue, I think I heard someone call it, and that's not far wrong. I don't have the right light in here to show it, but it's deep blue in some lights and then black in some lights, and little shades of purple in there as well. It really is, if you think of petrol when it's on the floor and the sunlight hits it, it is a lot like that. It looks absolutely stunning. And the combination of the bezel blue, the second hand being blue, the minute running track being blue, and just the way that bezel changes color with the dial, it's just absolutely phenomenal. It's very, very well executed, especially for a watch at this price. It's really taken me by surprise. The handset, again, is something else that really surprised me. When I got out my loop and started playing around and having a look, it's polished on one side of the hand and brushed on the other. So people talk about light play and you kind of like, yeah, whatever. But because of that, you obviously do get a lot more reflective properties off the polished bit compared to the, there you go, you might be able to see it there, compared to the brush side. So again, a watch at this price point, that's a really nice touch. You don't have to do that. That was a level of skill that was certainly not present on my Longines or my Zelos, to just brush one tiny side of the hand on both of them. So all these things combined, the dial, the bezel, and the handset, just make it a watch that punches massively above its price point. It really did take me by surprise, a huge amount. One thing I did notice, which is a bit odd, I don't think it will pick up here, but the date wheel, they've obviously tried to match it. You might be able to see it there. So the dial is obviously a silver sunburst, but the date wheel background is white. I prefer it personally if the dial was just white, but that's just my preference. So now and again, in certain lights, you catch it and the date wheel just looks a little bit odd because it does clash slightly with the silver dial. Also, I know they had to put that extra lume marker there to meet ISO standards, which is fine. But where the dial is let down a little bit, on my Omega Seamaster Aquaterra 8500, there is a aperture around the, a surrounding to the dial, a surrounding to the date window. So it looks a bit more even. I think if the date wheel had just a stainless steel surround on it, like the hour plots, it'll just look a bit more consistent, and I think the design would come together a bit better. But there's no kind of cutting, or sometimes you've got a stepped depth in the date wheel, it's just flat. So with all the amazing execution that's gone into the rest of the watch, having a white date wheel backing and no kind of stepping or surrounding for it, it just looks a little bit odd, and especially with the extra Lume plot there as well. So that's probably the biggest negative about the dial. Not that I think that's a massive negative, but it's definitely something that I mentioned. The Lume on the watch is fantastic. I think people are more than aware of that. I'm not going to put a Lume shot in. You'll see them everywhere. It's very bright. It lasts a very long time. It's a very nice colour. You get Lume at the pip at 12 o'clock. The hands are lumed, and then all the indices are lumed, and obviously so is the second hand. So it's, oh, I forgot to mention, it's 120 click bezel for anyone wondering, as opposed to some 60 click bezels or other different variants depending on if you're GMTs and stuff like that. So yes, back to where I was. So the Lume is very, very good, but again, I don't have many Seikos. Apparently they're very, very well known for that, so not entirely surprising. I think the case is done very, very well, and this is where it really stands apart from other watches that I've had. So you can see you've got really nice proportions of the side of the case. So you've got a quite thick bezel with the coin edging, so you can grip it nice and easily when you're using it. You've got quite a thick polished area. I've heard people saying it's Soratsu polishing like on Grand Seikos. Can't confirm or deny that. Looks polished to me. Shiny? Yep, shiny. So no issues there. A nice thin brushed mid case. These are great, by the way. I think they look cool, the drilled lugs, but it does actually make it surprisingly easy to change the case. And then again, you've got some polished elements on the back of the case. The back of the case, and also on the underside of the lugs side of the case. So it's very, very well proportioned. And where Tudor just keep falling down is the side of their cases are too big. And you'll notice on the new Black Bay Pro and on the GMT, they kind of cut into the case to try and reduce the thickness appearance because their bezels are too thin, their cases are too thick. I think they've done an absolutely excellent job with this, and you've got polishing on the ends there as well. It's just executed really, really well, really fine brushing. You can see there it's radial, it follows the case around. It's just superb. And again, my Longines was just such a plain case compared to this. It didn't have any of these complexities to it. And the Zelos was the worst of the three. Still a good watch, but nowhere near as well built as this. And I appreciate Seiko. I've obviously got far bigger budgets and far bigger teams, factories and stuff like that. So I'm not expecting it to be the same. But yeah, for a similar price point, this is just an incredible, incredible case, incredible dial. The watch head is just surprising. It's just absolutely brilliant and very, very surprising. Right, what else have I got to talk about with the case? I think that's probably it. So we're done with the case, which is by far and away the best part of the watch, which is why I've got it on this strap. It's just incredible. If you've never had a Seiko before and you're nervous about paying £800, £900, £1,000, don't be. The cases, the bezel action, the amount of effort that's gone into making this how it is remarkable. Okay, the movement. This is where I thought it was going to get let down, but it didn't. It hasn't let itself down at all. The hand sweep, I think everyone will know about this if you're looking at this video. You can see it's quite slow, so they slowed down the hand sweep. I don't know exactly what the beats per minute is, but that was to extend out the power reserve to 70 hours. So you can see it's not as smooth a sweep as it would be on the majority of automatic watches that you look at. Hasn't bothered me, couldn't care less. No issues with that at all, to be perfectly honest with you, but it's just worth mentioning. The crown use is nice. It's easy to grip. It sticks out a lot. You've got no crown guards there. It's not signed, which is unusual, but doesn't bother me. But you can see it's got some nice knurling. Very easy to grip. It doesn't pop out as much as you like when you just open it. There you go. So I can feel it there. It just popped, but it doesn't go. It's not particularly active. The only thing I have noticed is while the stem is solid, the head moves ever so slightly, which surprised me. Again, not an issue. It doesn't affect the movement or use of the crown, but it does move slightly. And if you wind it, it's got quite a nice sound actually. So you can hear it. It's very nice to use. Again, the best of the three between this, the Zelos, and the Longines. Let me just take this off actually. So yeah, other than the fact it's a little bit wibbly, it's nice to use. I always think watches look a bit weird like this. I quite like the case back. I didn't even mention that. That's, you know, it's quite a nice touch, even if it does add a tiny bit of thickness, of which is where the extra measurements are coming from. It's pretty straightforward, but I do like it. Timekeeping itself is actually really, really good. So I've got it to losing 3 seconds a day. So my most expensive watch at the moment, my IWC, gains 3.5 seconds a day, and this loses pretty much 3.5 seconds a day. It will lose 4 seconds when I wear it throughout the day. I'm at my desk most of the time, going for walks, whatever. And then during the night dial up, it will gain 1.5 seconds or so. So it's pretty much 3 seconds slower a day, 3.5 seconds slower a day, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Given the tolerances that Seiko quote are -15 to +25 seconds, I think that's brilliant. And I'm not a movement snob, but I do like my watches to be accurate. So that if this was running 10 seconds minus plus a day, I'd probably sell it. It's just too annoying. I like to wear my watches for 2-3 weeks at a time, and that's just losing or gaining too much time. So anything under 5 seconds, which this is well under, losing or gaining a day, I'd rather they gain, but again, not too fussed. Very, very happy with that. So that was probably the biggest shock of, oh no, that's not true, because I love the case and the dark and everything else. But the movement was a surprise. I didn't expect it to be as accurate as it is. So really pleased about that. Right, bracelet and clasp. I've got quite a few points on this. So I'm not particularly a fan of the bracelet, and this is obviously where they've cut their costs. This is where you're saving your money. So I reckon this is 3 different components. If you look at the curvature of that end lug which joins the watch, it's quite sharp. It's got, like, not sharp, but it has an angle to it, whereas the links are curved. So I think that is a piece off one watch. From there to there is a separate watch where you've got the bracelet links, which are lovely actually, and then I think the clasp is another watch. So I think this is a part spin special. Might be wrong, pretty sure it is. You also have weird things like the way it joins the case, it's flat. So that angle up there is completely exposed, and it just kind of goes flat across it, and it looks stupid. It's not very well thought through. So I refused. I'd be very, very surprised if this is designed for this watch. You can see it's completely flat, and you can see the nice curve there. So you would want them to marry up, and it doesn't. People complain about tolerances between the end link and the watch case. I didn't have any of that. That was absolutely fine. This bit is lovely, and the articulation both ways is superb. It was very comfortable, but it weighs a lot because the clasp is so big. The clasp for me feels cheap, right? You've got a lot of micro adjustment, to be fair, even though it's not tallest, is what it is. The Zelos one was okay, fairly rudimentary and cheap to use, and didn't feel great. But I can get a perfect fit with this. It just feels cheap. I mean, the tolerances on some of the parts just rattle around. It's a bit loose. It feels a bit flimsy. Some bits are milled. That's probably milled as well. Some bits are stamped. The divers extension just makes it feel a bit cheap. So when you've got such an incredible watch head where it looks like a huge amount of work and effort has gone into making it so nice, and then you have this bracelet which is a mishmash of stuff, and again you've got chamfering along the top of the case, no chamfering along the top of the bracelet, but then chamfering on the clasp. It's completely, it's just a mismatch. It doesn't work. It's comfortable, it's heavy. I think people also have talked about dive extension. It's pretty pants, to be honest with you. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to open it. It really bloody hurts to open it. Son of a bitch. But this is the bit that's, oh, here you go. 100% that's stamped. And it just feels cheap. It looks cheap. It feels cheap. And for me, it was letting down the watch. I don't even mind the fact it's pin and collar. Easy enough to change. I've got the right tools to do it. But yeah, it lets down the watch when the watch is so spectacular. What I do really like is the way it looks on the watch, unfortunately. So if it was just a better quality clasp, I would have left the bracelet on. But because the bracelet is very comfortable, I showed you how well it articulates. The bracelet's actually very comfortable, but the clasp just makes the watch feel cheap. So having the watch on a different strap like this, I know some people will say these straps will cheapen it, but bear in mind you've got some very expensive watches that come on NATOs. But for me, it gives you the emphasis of where they did spend the money, which is the watch head. So yeah, I just think, even though I can get this very comfortable, it just ruined the whole experience of the watch for me. And I had some experimentation with different NATO straps. I'm going to do a video on this because I think this is poor as well. It's a watch gecko strap. You can just hear it. And it does that whole time it's on your bloody wrist. There you go, you can see it. Anyway, not for today. I have had it on different straps. This is actually a very nice strap. It's a sailcloth, but it's actually rubber. And it does look very nice on the watch. And this is a Zulu diver strap. I do like that. It looks very, very good. Silver stitching, black. But I've settled on this one, which is the watch gecko strap, which is absolutely fantastic. Not for this video, though. Just give me 2 seconds. I'm going to make sure I've just got through all my points. Yeah, I do like the treatment of the watch. So what I will say is it kind of almost looks titanium. So where Seiko put this coating on it for scratch resistance, it takes away the kind of silvery colour that you have with a stainless steel watch, and it almost makes it look titanium, which I do really like. And at the moment, the scratch resistant properties seem to be doing something to it, because it hasn't got as many scratches as some of my other watches have when I wear them daily, as I have been with this for almost 3 weeks now. So on to my conclusions finally, because this has gone on for a very long time. Overall, it's a very surprising watch. Can I say it's a keeper? I don't know. Would I sacrifice it to bump up money for other watches? I'd like not to. I do, as I say, try and buy watches that I will keep for a long time. It doesn't always work out that way, as my channel will be a testament to. But the watch head paired with a nice strap is a wonderful combination. For the price, it's incredible. It looks amazing. The bezel action's amazing. The amount of effort that's gone into delivering it and producing it. The watch head is way above its price point. It blows my Longines and my Zelos out the water. Take off the bracelet, put it on a strap, and I think you're onto a winner. It has cured my itch for a white dial watch. Again, I'll come on to my 40th one when I do a separate video for that, but I think it's a brilliant, brilliant watch. The movement accuracy really surprised me. It just blew me away. Just really surprised with how good the watch is overall. So if you had to fix the niggles I had, this thing, it wouldn't be a £1,000 watch. It would be a £2,000 or £3,000 watch, because bracelets are extremely expensive to make well, with screw links, with high quality clasps, with micro adjusting clasps. I think my IWC bracelet alone is about £1,500 if you buy it from IWC. So this would be double the price if the bracelet was where I would want it to be. So as a result, I'm happy to buy it at the price point, take off the bracelet with the cheap clasp and put it on a separate strap. So on balance, I'm really, really pleased. As you can see, there are some compromises, which is exactly what you'd expect a watch at this price point. Go in with your eyes open, know what you're getting, do your research. But yeah, is it a keeper? I'd like to think so. It wouldn't give me a huge amount of money if I sold it. I'd probably get 850, maybe 900, so I'd make a couple of £100. But it would have to be a very, very good reason to sell it, and I can't think of one at the moment. So apologies for the length of the video. Any questions, let me know.